I never imagined the day I'd go to war would be in my own kitchen, and the battlefield would be over a pot of stew. It started like any other Sunday, sunlight spilling through the blinds, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee curling through the hallway, and me in the kitchen, humming softly as I stirred the pot. I'd been working on this dish for hours. It wasn't just a recipe. It was a memory, my late mother's special saffron lamb stew. A dish filled with warmth, patience, and decades of tradition. I wanted to honor her. I wanted to make something that felt like home. But then she walked in. My mother-in-law, impeccably dressed, lips curled in what she thought passed for a smile. She never needed words to make me feel small. Her eyes did all the talking. "Oh," she said, raising one perfectly arched brow as she leaned over the stove. "That's what you're serving?" I froze. "Yes," I replied, trying to keep my tone even. "It's lamb stew. My mother used to." She waved a hand as if shooing away a fly. "Lamb? Humph. That smell is potent." Potent. Like it was some kind of chemical spill. I turned back to the pot, gripping the ladle harder than necessary. "Breathe. Just breathe." This wasn't the first time. In the 2 years I'd been married to her son, she'd always found subtle ways to remind me I'd never be good enough. That no matter how hard I tried, I didn't belong. But this time felt different. This dish, this was sacred. And she was defiling it with one word. Potent. As the stew simmered, I tried to brush it off. My husband, Jacob, was upstairs helping his father set up the projector for movie night. I didn't want to start drama. Not again. Not today. But then she did something I'll never forget. She picked up a spoon, dipped it into the pot without asking, tasted it, and let out the most exaggerated gag I've ever seen. "Goodness. Did you follow a recipe, or just throw things in blindfolded?" I was stunned. The air thickened around us. My cheeks flushed, not from the steam, but from humiliation and anger. I opened my mouth to respond, but she was already walking away, muttering, "I'll make a salad." Something edible. Something snapped inside me. I wasn't just angry, no, this was deeper. This was years of backhanded compliments, of forced smiles at her snide remarks, of trying so hard to earn her approval only to be met with disdain. And for once, I didn't want to cry. I wanted to fight back. But not with words. With dinner. That's when the idea came to me. A dinner she wouldn't forget. Not because it was perfect, but because it would be impossible to ignore. I didn't change the stew. No, I left it as it was, my mother's recipe, unfiltered and unapologetic. But I decided to add a little surprise to the rest of the meal. Something tailored just for her. As I plated everything up, the wheels in my mind began to spin faster than they ever had. Every passive-aggressive comment she'd ever made played back like a symphony of resentment. "You cook like someone who's never owned a spice rack." "You look tired. Are you feeling well? Or is that just how you always look without makeup? Jacob was always thinner before he married you." I smiled. I set the table with extra care. Candles, linen napkins, her favorite wine. Everything looked picture-perfect. On the surface, it was a Martha Stewart dream. But underneath, a storm was brewing. She returned to the dining room precisely at 7, dressed like she was meeting royalty, not having dinner with family. Jacob followed, completely unaware. Bless his heart, he still believed his mother was just a little blunt. She sat down, eyeing the food with a practiced look of skepticism. "Did you burn the bread?" she asked. "It's grilled flatbread. Charred intentionally," I said smoothly. She raised a brow. "If you say so." We all sat. Plates were passed. Wine was poured. Jacob dug in immediately. Honey, this stew is amazing." My heart fluttered. My stew. My mother's legacy. At least someone saw it. Then she tasted it. And the moment was electric. Not because she liked it. No. Her face twisted like she'd just bitten into a lemon wrapped in regret. But she didn't say a word. Instead, she sipped her wine. And then fit began. She coughed. Once. Then again. Her face flushed. Eyes widened. She grabbed the napkin and dabbed her lips, but the coughing didn't stop. She reached for her glass again and again. "What's wrong?" Jacob asked, concerned. I think spice," she managed between coughs. "Too spicy." "Spicy?" I asked, genuinely confused. "There's no spice in the stew." She pointed to the side dish, the yogurt dip I'd specially crafted. I leaned in, feigning concern. "Oh no," I said sweetly. "Did you try the green one? That's a traditional North African chili blend. Very rare. I read it's quite cleansing." Jacob looked at me. I didn't taste anything spicy. "Neither did I," said his father. "It's quite refreshing." She coughed again, more out of pride than anything else now. She was cornered. And she knew it. Because what she didn't know, what no one knew, was that I had swapped the mild herbs with a concentrated green chili paste, the kind chefs use sparingly for culinary challenges on reality TV. Just a little in her portion. A reminder. Not enough to harm. Just enough to humble. I didn't smirk. I didn't say a word. I simply looked her in the eye and said, "Would you like more?" She didn't answer. But for the first time since I married her son, she was speechless. She didn't speak for the rest of dinner. Not one word. She picked at her plate, sipped her wine, occasionally dabbed at the corners of her mouth with the napkin like she was fighting a war inside her head. A war between pride and defeat. And I kept serving her. Quietly. Gracefully. With all the elegance of a perfect hostess. Every time she tried to reclaim control with a glance or a huff, I was already one step ahead. Offering more dip, asking if she'd like more stew, complimenting her earrings like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't just handed her a taste of her own medicine on a silver spoon. After dessert, saffron cardamom pudding, a soft, sweet echo of the stew's warmth, she finally spoke. I supposed it was tolerable. Tolerable. That was her attempt at surrender. I leaned forward, resting my elbows lightly on the table, smiling like a woman who had finally figured out the rules of the game. "I'm so glad you tried it. I wasn't sure you'd appreciate something so different." Her mouth opened slightly, but she said nothing. And that silence? It was louder than any insult she'd ever thrown at me. Jacob, blissfully unaware, offered to help with dishes, and I nodded, happy to let him escape. His father went to check his emails, as he always did after dinner. That left her and me in the dining room, bathed in candlelight and the fading scent of cardamom. "I see you've been experimenting," she said after a pause, folding her hands in her lap. "Not really," I replied. "It's an old family recipe." "From your side," she said, like it was a defect. I didn't flinch. "Yes." "From my mother. She believed food carried memory." "Well, I suppose some memories are stronger than others." I looked at her, right in the eyes. "Yes, and some leave a lasting burn." She blinked. Just once. The tension between us was no longer subtle. It had formed a seat at the table, bold and undeniable. She stood slowly, adjusting her blouse. "Next time, perhaps you'll warn your guests when something is aggressive." I stepped beside her. "And next time, perhaps guests will ask before insulting a family recipe." The air crackled. It was no longer a game. Not anymore. For years, I had endured her, tiptoeing around her moods, pretending her jabs didn't wound, smiling when she dismissed me, cooking safe, bland meals she'd approve of just to avoid conflict. But this time, something had shifted. Something permanent. That night, as I laid beside Jacob, his arm draped around me, his soft breaths brushing the back of my neck, I didn't feel guilt. I felt power. Not the kind that dominates, but the kind that says, "I see you." And I'm not shrinking anymore. The days that followed were strangely quiet. She didn't call like she usually did. Didn't drop by unannounced. Didn't send Jacob passive-aggressive text messages about how nice it must be to live without standards. It was peaceful. Until the family brunch. Jacob's sister, Rachel, was in town and invited everyone over. His parents, cousins, aunts, the whole tribe. And of course, everyone brought food. I made a chickpea and tahini salad with lemon zest and pomegranate seeds. Bright. Balanced. Beautiful. As I placed my dish on the table, I felt her eyes scan it. "Another experimental dish?" she asked casually. I smiled, calm and collected. "Just something simple and honest."
She didn't reply.
But others noticed. "Oh wow," Rachel said, loading her plate. "This salad is amazing. Who made this?" I raised my hand. "Seriously," she said, wide-eyed. "You need to give me this recipe." Even her mother chimed in. "You've really stepped up your game lately." I didn't look at my mother-in-law, but I could feel the heat radiating off her. Jealousy, insecurity,
Fear.
because for the first time, the room wasn't revolving around her approval. It was revolving around mine. Over the next few weeks, things began to unravel. Not for me. For her. Her control. The grip she held over every family meal, every conversation, every sideways glance, was slipping. I started hosting more. Casual dinners. Weekend brunches. Holiday breakfasts. And every time, I served food that reflected who I was. Spices from my childhood, stories from my culture, warmth from generations of women who cooked with love and pride, not fear. And the family? They loved it. They laughed louder, stayed longer, asked for seconds.
And she?
She was becoming a ghost in her own dynasty. At one dinner, she brought her famous lemon tart. No one touched it. Instead, they devoured my cinnamon rosewater custard and asked for more. I never gloated, never rubbed it in. But she saw it, and it was eating her alive. One afternoon, she cornered me in the kitchen while I was slicing figs. "You think you've won something?" she hissed. I looked at her.
Calm. Steady.
"I'm not trying to win. I'm just done losing." That's silence again. She turned on her heel and left, but I knew something had changed. Because when a person used to controlling everything suddenly loses power, they don't just shrink. They panic. And panic makes people reckless. What she did next? Let's just say, it was the beginning of the end. The next family dinner was supposed to be just another evening. I had planned something warm and nostalgic, slow-roasted eggplant with garlic yogurt sauce, saffron rice, and a cucumber mint salad on the side. Nothing showy. Nothing bold. Just comfort. But she had other plans. She arrived early. Earlier than usual. In a tailored beige blazer, hair tightly pinned back, a crystal dish in her hands like a trophy. "I brought something," she said with a tone dipped in honey. I nodded. "That's lovely." She followed me into the kitchen, eyes scanning every corner like she was inspecting for failure. Then she leaned in, her voice low and flat. "I just want you to know, I had your food tested." I froze. My hand, halfway through chopping parsley, went still.
What?
She set the dish down gently, then looked straight at me. "That stew you made. The one with the family recipe?" I thought it tasted off. So I had a friend at the lab take a look. I stared at her, speechless. She continued, calm as a surgeon. "They said it had extremely high levels of capsaicin. Not dangerous, but certainly aggressive. And that warranted a test." I asked, voice cracking. I had to be sure. "You've been different lately." I stepped back, heart pounding. She wasn't just being cruel anymore. She was trying to paint me as a threat. A poisoner. A woman who couldn't be trusted. Jacob walked in at that moment, cheerful and oblivious. "Hey, everything okay?" I didn't speak. Couldn't. She, of course, smiled sweetly. "Just girl talk," she said. But something in my face must have betrayed me. Because Jacob turned to me, concerned. "Babe." I blinked, finally finding my voice. "Your mother had our food tested. She thinks I'm trying to hurt her." His smile dropped. "What?" She stepped in smoothly. "Oh, don't be dramatic. I was just being cautious." "Are you serious?" he asked, stunned. "She's been acting strange. All these new spices, dishes I've never heard of. I thought." "You thought she was poisoning you?" His voice rose. Now the whole room was silent. His father, cousins, Rachel, they were all listening from the dining room. I saw it click in Jacob's face. All the comments. All the insults. The years of jabs and controlling behavior. He looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. And then he said, clearly and firmly, "You owe her an apology." She laughed, short, sharp, awkward. "Oh, Jacob, don't be silly. I was protecting the family." "No," he said. "You were trying to sabotage her." Again. The room went still. She looked around, realizing she had no support. Even Rachel was shaking her head, biting her lip. "You've gone too far, Mom," she muttered. And just like that, the wall she had built for decades, brick by brick, out of fear and manipulation, began to crumble. "I won't apologize for being concerned," she snapped. "You don't have to apologize for being concerned," I said quietly. "You have to apologize for crossing a line." She didn't. Of course she didn't. Instead, she picked up her dish, turned to Jacob, and whispered, "You'll regret this." And then she walked out. Out of my house. Out of the illusion of control. Out of the role she had played for so long. Dinner was quiet after that. Heavy, but not broken. Jacob held my hand. His father apologized for her. Rachel offered to help clean up. And I finally breathed.
Deeply.
Like I had been underwater for years, and only now surfaced. The fallout didn't come all at once. It came in waves. Weeks passed. She didn't call. Didn't show up. Didn't even send the annual Christmas card she used to sign with a flourish and a passive-aggressive note. But she didn't disappear either. She lingered. In conversations. In whispers. In the corners of Jacob's eyes when he stared too long at his phone, debating whether to call. One day, she sent an email. Not to me. To Jacob. It said, "I miss you. I'm sorry things got out of hand. But you must understand, I only ever wanted the best for you. And I wasn't sure she was it." He didn't reply. He showed me the message. Let me read it in silence. And then deleted it. No discussion. Just gone. And that was the loudest declaration of love I'd ever seen. The next holiday, we hosted dinner. Just our closest circle. Friends. His father. Rachel. People who brought joy, not judgment. I made my mother's stew again. Exactly the same way. And this time, we all laughed at the burn. Passed water and wine and honeyed yogurt to cool our tongues. Because food, like love, is supposed to be honest. It's supposed to speak, even when words fail. And sometimes, it delivers justice when nothing else can. Healing didn't happen overnight. Some days, I still flinched when the doorbell rang, half expecting her to appear again, armed with another judgment, another passive-aggressive compliment wrapped in silk and suspicion. But instead, it was flowers. From Rachel, with a card that read, "For the woman who taught me that strength can look like grace in an apron." It made me cry, because for so long I had questioned if anyone saw it, what I had endured. The small humiliations, the stolen joys, the quiet moments of resilience when I chose peace over pettiness, grace over revenge. And yet here was someone who noticed, who was learning. A month later, Jacob's father invited us for dinner. Just us. He was gentle, careful. He didn't bring her up directly, but I could feel the weight in his voice when he said, "This house has been too quiet lately." I smiled politely, but I knew he missed her. Even when someone causes chaos, their absence can echo. And yet, for the first time, I didn't feel guilty for being part of that silence. Because I wasn't the one who threw the stone. I was the ripple. And ripples don't apologize for the stone's choices. One night, Jacob and I sat on the porch watching the stars. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of jasmine and old stories waiting to be told. He reached for my hand. "You know," he said, "you could have left." My throat tightened. I thought about it. I wouldn't have blamed you. But I didn't want to leave you. I wanted to be heard. And he nodded. That was the difference. I didn't want escape. I wanted space. Room to be me, wholly and loudly and unapologetically. And in the end, I got it. Not because she gave it to me, but because I reclaimed it. Weeks turned to months. The story of the spicy stew showdown, as Rachel liked to call it, became a sort of family legend. People laughed, imitated her coughs, asked for the recipe with a wink. But more than laughter, it left something else behind. Respect. Not the kind that demands obedience. The kind that's earned when someone sees you stand your ground with dignity. Even Jacob's father, a man of few words and endless traditions, pulled me aside one day. "I underestimated you," he said. I smiled. "You're not the first." He nodded slowly. "But you might be the last." I appreciated that. And yet, the story wasn't finished. Because one day, months later, I received a knock. Not a ring. A soft knock. And there she was, holding a small Tupperware container. No blazer this time. No trophy dish. Just a woman in a wool cardigan, face tired, pride carefully folded away. "I made something," she said. I blinked. She held it out. "It's a stew. Probably terrible. I didn't have your touch. I didn't move. I don't expect you to forgive me," she said quietly. "But I'm tired of being angry." I took the container, not because I trusted it, but because it was a symbol of her trying, of a wall that had cracked, not collapsed, but shifted. "I'll heat it up," I said simply. She sat at my kitchen table for the first time in months. Quiet, watching me stir. No criticisms. No hovering. Just silence. When we finally ate, it was salty and undercooked and clumsy. But it was honest. And sometimes that's enough. Later, after she left, Jacob asked how it went. I shrugged. "It's a start." He smiled. "A spicy one?" I laughed. "More like awkward and bland." "But hey, at least she didn't accuse me of poisoning her." He chuckled and we moved on. Because forgiveness doesn't always come in grand gestures. Sometimes, it's a stew that's too salty. A knock instead of a ring. A seat at the table after a long absence. I didn't forget what she did. I don't think I ever will. But I also didn't let it define me. I found power in my kitchen. In my silence. In my refusal to stoop to her level. And when I served her that spicy stew, I wasn't trying to hurt her. I was reminding her that I exist. That I have flavor. That I won't be swallowed quietly. And she got the message. Loud and clear. So if you ever find yourself in a war of words served at the dinner table, don't be afraid to season your story. To raise your voice with kindness. To serve a little heat, not to burn but to awaken. Because sometimes the strongest statement isn't shouted. It's simmered.
Slow.
Bold. Intentional. And utterly unforgettable. So many of us are taught to keep the peace, even if it means letting ourselves get chipped away, bit by bit, meal after meal, word after word. But here's the truth that finally set me free. Peace isn't pretending nothing happened. Peace is knowing you stood your ground without losing your soul. It's in the quiet courage of saying, enough. Of choosing dignity when drama begs for attention. And maybe, just maybe, in cooking a dish that says everything words couldn't. So if someone ever tries to diminish you, to make you feel like your presence is too much, too loud, too different, remember this. You're not too much. They're just not ready for your spice. And one day, they'll come around. Maybe not with praise, maybe not with applause, but with softened hearts and eyes that finally see you. The real you. And when they do, let them taste the strength you've always carried. One bold bite at a time.